Hello and welcome to our discussion on the topic of emotional eating during the holidays. I am Dr. Lorraine Gordon. I am an assistant professor of counseling, a nationally certified counselor, and a licensed professional counselor in the state of New Jersey. I am a certified counseling trauma professional, and I have over 8 years in experience in counselor education and over 13 years experience as a clinician. I provide modalities of therapy, including the different modalities of therapy, including individuals, group, family, and couples. I am excited actually to introduce my colleagues and my peers this morning and as a panelist to this discussion. I will introduce Dr. Jesline Mians, Dr. Leslie Rojas, Dr. Caroline Roach, and Ms. Tina Onikoyi, licensed professional counselor in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. My name is Dr. Jesline Mians, and I have 23 years of experience in the field of clinical psychology. I speak French, Haitian Creole, and Spanish, and I am privileged to work with a diverse clientele from around the world. I'm so excited to be here this morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Leslie Rojas. I am a licensed professional counselor, a licensed drug and alcohol counselor, and I'm a permit holder awaiting my board certification. I have over 9 years of experience. I work with a diverse group of populations in substance use treatment, mental health treatment in general, vocational rehabilitation for individuals with disabilities, and I'm very excited to participate in today's panel meeting.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caroline Roach. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a licensed clinical counselor for drug and alcohol, and I am a 3-year permit holder, awaiting for my board certification as a clinical psychologist. I have 14 years of experience in the mental health field, along with the drug and alcohol field. My experience is mostly working from a range of clientele with severe mental SPMI, severe persistent mental illness, to more of the milder symptoms. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tina Onikoyi. I'm a doctoral intern studying clinical psychology with a specialization in health psychology. I am also a licensed professional counselor, a board certified telemental health provider, and I have the pleasure of working with individuals from a wide spectrum, especially specifically focused with psychiatric emergency. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you, ladies. And Dr. Mians, I would like to actually direct the first question to you. What is emotional eating?
So emotional eating means that you eat for reasons other than hunger. And emotional eating can play different functions. So we may use food as comfort, we may use food as a distraction, and sometimes, believe it or not, we can use it as a reward.
I have a follow-up. Thank you. I have a follow-up question for you. And that is, what are the emotions that usually need comforting?
That's a very good question, Dr. Gordon, because sometimes we don't even realize that we have emotions behind our emotional eating. And it's very hard to identify them sometimes, but sometimes we know. Clients would tell you in therapy that they eat because they're sad, they eat because they're anxious, they're afraid. Sometimes we lose hope, so we kind of give up. Some people feel a sense of emptiness and loneliness. And some people eat out of anger, whether to punish themselves or to teach somebody a lesson. We eat because we're bored, and sometimes, frankly, we eat because it's just a habit or it's part of our culture or that's what we do. And lastly, we eat sometimes because we're happy and because we are celebrating and we push the button a little too much.
Wow, great. You talked about culture, and I'd like actually to direct and the next question to Dr. Rojas. Talk to us about the cultural aspect and its impact during the holidays on emotional eating.
Sure, thank you for that question. So food relates a lot to different parts of a person's cultural identity. It's a means of connecting with family. It's a means of joining in on the holidays. However, because of our culture, unfortunately, sometimes food is used as a coping strategy, as Dr. Mia discussed. The holidays, as we know, can also be a time of great time with family, but also a great time of stress for some individuals who have anxiety, depression, and utilize food as a comfort, as a way to unfortunately, negatively cope with that stress and that anxiety or feelings of depression. There's a lot of expectations during the holidays. And what ends up happening is, unfortunately, because the food is available and abundant during the holidays, it becomes very stress inducing to the point where some individuals actually take advantage or splurge a little with food.
Great, thank you so much. Tina, talk to us about the stress responses during the holidays. How do we entertain or socialize without self-sabotage, especially at this time of year?
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. That's actually a really great question. The holidays do provide quite a bit of stress for folks. And I think it's really important that we kind of check in with ourselves. Some of those stress responses can look like things like hyperactivity, hyperproductivity, difficulties with managing your boundaries. You have symptoms, things like sleep disturbances and fatigue. And so it's really important, again, just to kind of focus in and do some internal checking in, as well as effectively communicating your needs, right? So if that looks like expressing to people, what it is that you need from them, or engaging in any kind of specific social supports, those are some ways that you can actually combat some of those stress responses that you're experiencing.
Wow, that's good information there. Dr. Mians, what is the difference between physical and emotional hunger? From what I heard Tina just explained, what is that? How can we recognize that emotional eating?
It looks like we are just muted.
Dr. Gordon, physical hunger comes on gradually and can be postponed. So meaning that if you had breakfast at 7 in the morning, and it is normal that around 10:30, 11:30, you're starting to feel hungry. Of course, you're at work, you have to wait for your lunchtime, and you can wait. But emotional hunger comes on suddenly and feels urgent. It feels like we have to have that bag of chips now. Physical hunger also can be satisfied with any type of food. So if you're really hungry, you can't wait for lunch, you can grab an apple or have some tea, and you will be fine and wait for lunchtime. But emotional hunger causes specific cravings. We crave the pizza, we crave the chocolate, we crave the chip, we crave the ice cream. Another difference between the two is that physical hunger uh, allows you to stop eating when you're full. So if you're full, you have a clear message from your brain to your stomach telling you that you are full. But when it's emotional hunger, sometimes we eat more than we would normally eat, and we feel uncomfortably full. We probably experience that during Thanksgiving dinners, because everybody feels like they're entitled to having a full meal. And finally, physical hunger can cause satisfaction, a sense of, okay, I just nourished myself and I feel good, and I don't feel any kind of guilt or discomfort. And emotional hunger actually would leave you with a feeling that you just did something totally wrong and that you cross your own boundaries. So emotional hunger causes a lot of different emotions after you eat, and that's usually how you would recognize that you just ate emotionally. So it's very hard for people to identify these emotions. So that's why some people have some cheat sheet on their fridge to say, you know, stop. Why are you here? What do you really need? What's really going on?
Wow, that's a lot of information. I heard that you talk about even the urges. So Dr. Roas, what are the consequences of this emotional eating should one succumb to that? What are the consequences?
So repetitive emotional eating can result in a whole range of weight-related health problems, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, a lot of medical issues that can develop from unhealthy eating habits. And in general, emotional eating becomes a negative coping strategy that is only temporary. It's a temporary fix for those emotions. The emotions are still there after the person has engaged in this behavior. So it really doesn't resolve anything. Actually, it adds more problems to the person. It's another way for them to feel defeated, for them to feel like they're helpless, hopeless in some ways, and then develop increased symptoms of anxiety and depression. So people can get discouraged because they want to change, but they don't seem to be able to change.
Thank you. I heard what you said, and this makes me wonder then, with this emotional eating, especially during the holidays, could it have something to do with really other emotions? So Dr. Roach, what are the holiday blues? Are the vulnerabilities experienced by other people during the holidays, anniversaries, loss, social depression, usually using food as a reward? How can you explain to us what that is?
Sure, and thank you, Dr. Gordon. So in this section, I would like to speak a little bit about seasonal affective disorder, which is a type of depression, right? And let me be clear, seasonal affective disorder it's repetitive and it could happen at any time of the year. But it's quite interesting that we tend to see this increase, especially around this time of the year, right? Why? If we look at it from a biopsychosocial, we look at our environment changes. We go from warm weather to milder weather to very cold weather, right? So that's the bio part. Then we go into this whole social piece where the gatherings, the holidays, and everything that's going on. And then the cycle, the piece of our perception, what we're thinking about. And that's when we start thinking about, especially with minority cultures, right? Since we're a very collective culture, who's not with us, who are we missing, who have we lost, and in combination of all of that, it's not uncommon to see the increase of depression or exhibited behaviors of depressive symptoms during this time of the year, and that's what we kind of tend to see as seasonal affective disorder. And it kind of in reward system, I like to look at it a little bit from the addiction standpoint. We often, eating is part of our nature, but then when we are feeling this way, we want instant gratification, right? So instant gratification is usually going into things that are very easy, accessible, and things that are high in calories that tend to be the most unhealthiest. And that's the instant gratification that we get to kind of avoid dealing with the emotions, the thoughts, everything that's going on during the holidays.
Thank you so much. That's really revealing. And so, which actually triggers me then to ask Dr. Mians, why are we so vulnerable to emotional eating around the holidays? Can we recognize this emotional eating? What are your take on this?
I think we're all vulnerable, and I don't want to pathologize it so much. We're all human beings, and we are evolving in certain cultures that promote eating. You know, when you look at the media, there are commercials for eating everywhere. They make it look cool to eat a bag of chips or to have a soda. But going a little deeper, we all are facing social expectations, and that can be from society, that can be from coworkers, that can be from neighbors, and a little closer from families, from spouses, children, and so on. So we have pressures from others that make us feel a little stressed. And if this was a coping mechanism, so around the holiday, it becomes even more so. And sometimes, frankly, the pressure we feel is self-imposed because we want to have an impression. We want to impress our in-laws when they're coming over dinner. We want to, it's almost like the holidays are a platform for people to show how well they're doing and how good they are, and that they've really made it and that they are living life. So we fall under that kind of self-imposed pressure. We also have this platform where we become more aware of our physical appearance. So if we were a little bit overweight, then we become conscious of it. And unfortunately, when we become so self-conscious, that's when our maladaptive patterns would kick in because we're familiar with that way of coping with stress. So when we struggle with body image in general around the holidays, of course, that struggle would be even more real, and we have to face our demons. And sometimes we have fear of being judged by others and comments from others. Sometimes these comments are direct, which is even hurtful, but even more hurtful is when the comments are indirect. Um, and I'm thinking especially about some of my clients who just had bariatric surgery, for example, weight loss surgery, and they have to follow a specific diet. But then when they go and be with their family around the holidays, they have so many comments about, oh, how come you're not eating this? How come you're not eating that? Oh my gosh, you're eating like a rabbit. Oh, you feel like you're better than us. And oh my God, you look so good. Do you even eat? So all these comments, some of them are intended to be compliments, can trigger somebody to avoid food altogether, and avoid a harsh critic from others or even harsher inner critic to come to the surface. So food becomes a trigger because it's the centerpiece of holiday gatherings. And some people also report starving for the holidays, meaning they don't eat during the days preceding the holidays so they can give themselves permission to eat around Christmas or Thanksgiving. Some report restricting so they can later eat a normal amount in front of other people. So there's so much going on in somebody's mind around the holiday. And of course, some of us eat our feelings or we binge eat because we're coping with the uncomfortable feelings that are triggered by the social gathering. So it's not a simple matter, Dr. Gordon. It's really very complicated, and that can also cause isolation. Some of my clients would prefer to just say no to those invitations, don't go anywhere. Even with the pandemic now, it's even more of an excuse that we can use to say, you know, I'm staying home. And people feel panic and anxiety, and then that's causing withdrawal or avoidance. And we all know that isolation can lead to further depression and really problematic eating, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you. That was very informative. I think one thing that I'll take away is that self-imposed pressure that you talk about. I think we all actually have experienced that. And if I want to be honest enough, that I have probably complimented others in a negative tone from the explanation you've given. So I'm very mindful of that. So we have identified what emotional eating is. We've identified how you can start doing that. You've identified even how it occurs and the emotions that are attached to it. And now we really want to segue into the coping aspect of actually managing emotional eating. So Tina, how does one cope with emotional eating? Can you share any tips with us, with the listeners, to see how they could avoid this?
Of course. Thank you, Dr. Gordon. Coping with emotional eating. There are definitely quite a few things that one can do to address eating emotionally. I think the paramount or first thing would definitely be mindful eating as opposed to mindless eating, right? So just being really intentional about what you are eating and making it almost like an experience, right? Noticing the textures and the smells, right? As opposed to sort of just kind of consuming as sometimes we do. I think it's also important to ensure that you avoid skipping meals, right? Making sure that you are eating regularly, making sure that the actual meals are balanced, that you're kind of having quite a bit of different types of food groups that you're consuming. You want to actually address some of those triggering emotions because the emotions are there. And, you know, to try to just, I think what we're doing with the emotional eating, right? We're trying to find a way to quell the discomfort. And so actually taking the time to address what the actual emotions that are coming up are is helpful. So whether that looks like journaling, whether that looks like, you know, attending therapy, you know, there are quite a few different things that one can do to address emotional eating. And so thank you for asking that question.
Thank you. I would like to actually go around the room or a virtual table to say very much thank you. I appreciate the different aspect that we've touched on today, but I want for each of you to leave us with one thing, leave the audience with one thing about emotional eating, whether it's their resilience that they already have that they could draw on or draw out, or the habits, that simple habits, each of you. So I'm going to start with Dr. Roach.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gordon. I believe a good coping skill or an intervention that can be used. I like using a lot of grounding techniques, utilizing your senses to help you cope with the moment or help you, right, really think about whether that meal, that plate that you're craving, not hunger, craving for. I usually like encouraging patients to utilize their senses. So, for example, if you already have something in mind, um, utilize your senses. Try to read something. Try to go and listen to music. Try to go and take a walk. Try to go, right, before you actually go and just run into your craving. So it's like a little a relapse prevention technique.
Thank you. Dr. Rojas.
So there's two things that I think that are very beneficial that people should keep in mind in coping with emotional eating. One comes from the experience that I have with the substance use background and treatment. So don't get too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired. It could be a recipe for disaster. And then I learned this interesting acronym for managing typical holiday stress and anxiety. It's called PEACE. It stands for P for please reach out, open up to someone you trust and seek help. Engage your senses and become mindfully present. Like Tina was mentioning, mindful eating, definitely beneficial. And accept without judgment your flaws and especially your strengths, because a lot of times we only look at the negatives. C for challenge negative thoughts, distortions by finding exceptions. And E, enjoy life and live with wholeheartedly. Bring a focus to the positive events in your life while decreasing the focus on the negative and unhappy experiences.
Tina.
Oh, I love all these new ones that have been added. That's awesome. Let's see. I would probably say kind of what I've reiterated a couple times in my what I've said is mindfulness. Being intentional is very critical to this, right? And so actually checking in to see where you are. Am I seeking this food for physical purposes? Am I trying to just provide sustenance to my body, or am I feeling something else? Right. So just being mindful with what you're experiencing.
Thank you so much. Dr. Mians.
Wow. Over the last 2 years, I've been learning a lot about emotional eating because I'm part of this group where we provide bariatric services to clients, and I provide the psychological evaluation. I actually clear clients to have surgery because they are overweight. So I've been learning a lot. So two things I've learned: intuitive eating. That's a concept that's fairly new in the field. It's about really using your gut feeling, using your judgment with food, and to actually make peace with food, and seeing your body differently, seeing your body as a friend and not as the enemy, and to also make peace with the food police that either you have inside of you or you have around you, because food is not meant for conflict. It's not meant for feelings. It's really meant to nourish your body. So almost like if you take your car to the gas station, you're not gonna say, oh, why don't you give me some diesel today? Because I'm feeling a little sad, right? Or my car is not feeling good today. Why don't you just put some diesel when you have a gasoline car? So I see our body as a vessel. It's your soul need a vessel in order for you to function in this world as a human being. So in order for you to function and be the best you can be as a person, serving others, loving others, being compassionate, you need a good body, you need a functional body, and that's the only reason you eat. The other term that I've learned is about instrumental eating. So it's really eating for a purpose. And now that a lot of people are going to think about New Year's resolution, it's really a good time to think about a reason why you are eating and how you select the food that you are putting in your body based on conditions, whether mental or physical, that you want to target. So if you have diabetes, how can you eat so you heal this condition? I am reading this great book called This Is Your Brain on Food. And that's a book written by a psychiatrist who is a nutritional psychiatrist. Her name is Dr. Uma Naidoo, Umainaidoo. She talks about all the food that we can eat in order to heal our mental health conditions, from depression to anxiety to bipolar to OCD, ADHD, and trauma. So this is a wonderful book. I recommend it. It's very useful to me as a provider because now I can help my client eat for a purpose and become intuitive and instrumental eaters. And I'm really loving doing that. So I want everybody to see food as their friend and not their enemy.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you all for for your participation and for the information that you all have shared. I truly have enjoyed it, and I will implement some of those, the ideas that you've given in my own life. I would like also to give the audience the opportunity, if they need to contact you, to do so. So would you share your contact? How could they contact you?
So we are all at the Multicultural Counseling and Testing Center. We have our website, which is multiculturalnj.org. So if you go to our website, you can actually click and make an appointment. You can send me a text message directly at 973-652-2753, and I would direct you to the right channel to schedule a first-time appointment. We have a program where we help people change their eating habits and lifestyle. We have a very soft approach to weight loss. We're not about dieting. We're about how to make your brain and your body work for you. Dr. Rojas, our clinical coordinator, is very good at matching clients with the right counselor, right, Leslie?
Most definitely. We try to meet the need of the individual to make sure that they can, obtain the supports that they need to reach their goals.
Thank you all. I'd like to just leave the audience with a thought. And it's from Parkins, who says, remember the beauty of the diamond that comes from the extreme pressure and heat that it experienced. The same is true for all of us. Just like diamonds, we may have gone through extreme conditions of pressure and heat, but we can emerge stronger from this crisis that we've been experiencing for the past 2 years if we focus our energy and finding the positive lessons it gave us and hold on to one another this holiday season. I want to thank you all for your participation. Have a great holiday.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great holiday, everyone.
Gordon, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.